Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody, whatever part of the world you're currently in. This is our second part to our 2023 year end podcast on Spotify, and it's also going to be shared on our Face Economics TV YouTube channel. However, it's not going to be a complete video footage on our Face Economics TV YouTube channel because we're trying to basically get you guys to listen to our podcast more, and so that you have the flexibility to pause or play it as you drive on your car, wherever it's convenient for you, rather than just sticking to our YouTube channel, which is not very convenient most of the time because you have to stop whatever it is that you're doing in order to listen to our podcast. But with that said, we're still gonna try to do our best to include videos on our YouTube channel regarding our podcast specifically, but not in its full entirety, because we don't want you guys to over rely onto our YouTube channel for our podcast, because we have a very different strategy regarding our YouTube channel, but we still want our audience to be able to access our content in both our podcast and YouTube channel, as well as Facebook social media platform. With that said, I hope you are doing well. My name is Al Mina. I'm the concept author of Face Economics. Basically, it's the utilization of the social media platform in economic development worldwide. I created, this idea and basically theory long before I even graduated from college. I was basically very intrigued by how social media was being utilized when I was back in college. Predominantly, my classmates were using social media to upload, pictures of people that they like or have a crush on, and me being the weird guy in the class, was more interested in how to build markets and, create international business using the social media platform. Yes, I was that kind of, guy. So, with that said, thank you for joining me. My name is Al Mina, the concept author of Face Economics, the utilization of the social media platform in economic development. If we get cut off on our YouTube channel, we will be sharing the link to this podcast at the bottom of our YouTube, Face Economics YouTube TV channel, so you all can listen to the full entirety of this year in review 2023 Face Economics podcast. So let's get started. I'm gonna kind of work backwards with my list that I managed to draft a few hours ago. Obviously, I'm not gonna be able to cover everything, but I still want you guys to kind of reflect on things that have been happening in the year 2023. And actually, today is that 123 date. Will never happen in our lifetime ever again, which is 12/31/2023. So mark this date as 123. Very cool, very neat. We get to live a life that very few people on the planet will be able to experience throughout the next 100 of years. With that said, my name is Al Mina. I'm the concept author of Face Economics. I hope you guys would support us. We're doing this basically on our own, and we need all the support to basically help alleviate people from poverty, help develop communities worldwide, as well as in America. We have neighbors that are in need as well, so make sure to support your neighbor. You don't have to be their best friend. You don't even have to know, or they don't even have to know your name. You can be that secret Santa. Just help them out, leave them some, groceries, or, help pay their bills, whatever. You don't have to tell them your name. You don't have to give them your contact information. Just be that kind-hearted person, okay? So our objective is not necessary to be, this superstar or, legendary, Mother Teresa or anybody that is well known in terms of self-sacrifice. Our platform is specifically developed so that we can do our little bit, just a small piece of kindness towards other people worldwide, and towards our neighbors in our local communities will go a long way. So that's the whole reason why I created the concept face economics, the utilization of the social media platform in economic development. Because let's face it, it's so simple to just post something that is relevant to you on your social media platform. But if you utilize your social media platform to make an impact, to create a positive contribution to society, so why not utilize it? It's that's easy. It's not even going to take too much of your time to just help your fellow human being build capacity, endorse your market, to help develop your local community using your social media platform. When people ask me why I wrote the book and drafted the book, I wasn't really interested in becoming this well-known person, or somebody that would be prominent to begin with. All I wanted to do is basically utilize what I've learned from college and what I've learned throughout my experiences as a former international trade assistant, to basically help markets develop and help people that are in poverty, and also help America and Americans that are in need of some sort of aid and relief. We have tons of Americans that are definitely in need of help. Okay, yes, we are a wealthy country, but we do have Americans that don't have access to food, they don't have access to utilities, they don't have access to a home, they don't have access to any of the amenities that we have gotten so accustomed to in America. Yes, there are Americans living in poverty in America. So with that said, don't panic if the video cuts off, because it's designed, our podcast is designed to just give you a taste of what we're going to be talking about. The whole entirety of our podcast will be obviously on our Spotify channel, and we will be uploading our link to that. But with that said, make sure to please support us on our Patreon page. We need all the support that we can get to keep doing what we're doing. It's just a little humanitarian activity that we do in terms of in putting a little bit of our time to help others. Basically, we are a group of individuals that have regular lives, and we're just the typical person. It's just that we simply want to give back to the community using our concept, space economics concept. And so that's the whole strategy behind what we're doing. Again, my name is Al Mina. I'm the author of the Face Economics Concept, the Utilization of Social Media Platform in Economic Development. So let's start off with what took place in the year 2023. Fulton County released ex-President Trump's mugshot. Really interesting type of event that took place this year, in which former president's mugshot was taken and basically made public for the January 6th insurrection or quasi takeover, or whatever it is that you want to call, of Capitol Hill and Congress and the Senate buildings. I still don't have an opinion regarding this situation. I am a former federal government employee, and I do understand security and why it's important to have security on Capitol Hill and all federal government buildings. And I abide by it as a former federal government employee. I definitely, understand the need for security. So with that said, I don't know the overall situation that contributed or precipitated to the overall insurrection, or what most parties, Democrats predominantly, have called it that. And so all I'm going to say regarding that issue is that do not breach federal government property, whatever party you're from. Maybe the Democrat or Republican Party, independent. Be mindful that these government facilities is very secured, and that's the whole purpose of the overall protection of the workers inside of these buildings. So with that said, folks, Fulton County had released Mr. Trump's mugshot, and another situation that took place this year, not very long time ago, actually, it was that when they had this issue with the Hawaiian community of Laina that was devastated by, a fire. I don't know. It's kind of an overall wildfire environment that took place in Hawaii, which is, you wouldn't think it would happen there since it's surrounded by water. It's an island, but anyway, they had that issue there, and they managed to receive some aid from FEMA, which was a very little amount of money, about $700, which kind of sparked a lot of attention, given that these are U.S. taxpayers, these are American citizens, and Hawaii is directly connected to America. But yet, that's all the relief and aid that they managed to, receive from the federal government. Even though they regularly pay tax every year, on the dot, they have to pay tax, and yet they only got $700. With that said, transitioning to this part of the world, I'm currently in Eastern Europe. I'm not going to disclose the exact location, but guess what? This part of the world's gotten quite a bit of money, specifically U.S. tax money. And so there was an expose that was done just mid this year in 2023 regarding corruption that took place, or have been taking place actually since the onset of the war last year in 2022, where the former assistant director to the FBI had specifically and intimately basically connected the dots and went public and said, there were corruption that took place last year and this year within the administration, Zelensky's administration, and he was accused by the assistant director to be a part of the whole corruption issue, corruption scandal. But you know what? It's not like they didn't know about Ukraine to begin with. They're well known about Ukraine. Is notorious as far as these kinds of stuff happening in their government. So that's just the reality in that market. That's the reality within that system, the government. But yet, very few Americans, specifically those that don't really pay attention much about this part of the world, they wouldn't know anything as far as how people operate in this part of the world. So I think it's best that we wake up as Americans and realize how we're supporting or basically precipitating a conflict that might have been solved a long time ago if we were strategic and if we understand the nature of the decision makers in this part of the world. So let's see whatever else happened. So with that said, we're still contributing to Ukraine billions of U.S. tax dollars worth. It's still being sent over to Ukraine. And both U.S. and Congress representatives and the White House are well aware of the pre-existing conditions in this part of the world, in Eastern Europe, and specifically in Ukraine. But yet they still refuse to educate the population regarding their expertise, because most of them don't have any expertise regarding Ukraine, or living or working in Ukraine, or anything that would give them substantial credibility to put their name on a piece of paper legislation saying that they want to send billions and billions of U.S. taxes to a country that's not directly connected to the U.S. I mean, if Hawaii, for example, got $700 dollars, and these are American citizens, and these are taxpayers, and Hawaii is directly connected to the U.S. as a part of the country, why are they getting stiff and yet we sent billions and billions to a country that has no direct connection with the U.S. And on top of that, we know how their modus operandi works. You know how they operate. Don't get it. So, that took place this year. So I figured I'd bring that up into your attention, and you guys get to decide who makes sense and who doesn't make sense. I'm definitely not, telling you what to believe. I just want you to do your own research and understand what's really taking place. Another is this gentleman's father by the name of Gonzalo Lira. His father went public actually, and he was interviewed somewhere in Scotland regarding his, campaign to basically compel the U.S. government and the U.S. embassy in Kiev to help his son, who is an American citizen, born and raised in the U.S., grew up in New York. He is Hispanic-American. Okay, I don't know if that has anything to do with why he's still in jail, if the U.S. government is not interested in helping a Hispanic American who just basically went onto his platform, his YouTube channel, and talk about some of the things that he reviewed and he noticed as a former journalist. He is an educated journalist in the U.S. So if he operated as if he had no subject matter expertise, or he doesn't know what he's doing, no skill or whatever that is going to be relevant for people to make quality decisions on, then yes, I can understand why he would be persecuted. But yet, he has, previous experience and market credibility, as well as industry in the press credibility, to basically share his, concern and review the pre-existing condition in Ukraine. So he tried to basically escape Ukraine, and he was picked up alongside the Hungarian border. And since then, last August, no one knows what happened to him. Everybody's concerned and curious to know what happened to him, and no one's heard of him. So that's something that is kind of interesting for me to want to keep on, talking about, because it's the holiday season. He's got family, he's got friends. I'm pretty sure they want to see him, in one piece, in a situation that he's not, suffering. He's not overly distressed. And it's almost a new year. It's now December 31st, and almost 10 o'clock here in Eastern Europe, and still no one has heard of Mr. Gonzalo Lira. So please get your congressman, senator, right to the White House if need be, and have them help Mr. Gonzalo Lira. He's a Hispanic American who is currently sitting in a Ukrainian jail for exposing corruption in the Zelensky government, even though the FBI assistant director of the FBI already said, all right, yes, we have proof that the Zelensky government have been engaging in corruption with, U.S. money, U.S. taxes money. They were embezzling our taxes. So that was, shared by the assistant director of the FBI. Another situation is this mass border migration, illegal migration into the U.S. From South America and through Mexico. So basically, that's something that we ought to pay attention to. But I don't know if that's anything new. It's been an ongoing situation ever since there was an America as a country, especially after America was redistricted and basically various states and territories were acquired by the U.S. Yeah, there's definitely quite a bit of stuff that took place this year, and I thought I'd kind of reflect on some of them. Yes, unfortunately, some of them are very sensitive subjects, and unfortunately, very few people have provided a solution to these quagmire pre-existing conditions that's been happening in both the U.S. and Europe. But I thought I'd share this with you as we reflect on the year 2023 and what took place. There's also this narrative regarding Russia potentially or would be likely to attack NATO countries, which there was no clear indication of any of that, or there's no proof that they even have any form of sentiments wanting to attack any other countries. So, kind of crazy narrative, but people are still banking on it for some reason. I don't understand why. Um, you know, I don't think they have the you know wherewithal to really attack in other countries. They're definitely, there's a lot of disjointed opinion regarding Russia, in my opinion, just because there's available information about Russia. They were basically in the dark regarding their overall position on this war. So that's just the reality of things. We're not given enough information regarding what it is that they're really looking to do, or what we claim that they're wanting to do. Anyway, let's keep on going. A violation of the First Amendment rights that was exposed during the pandemic by the administration. I don't know to what extent exactly, because the social media giants that basically collaborated with the current administration is pretty much not sharing or telling the public or informing the public to what extent they did that. I myself, I felt some of it. I've been silenced during my U.S. Senate campaign. Majority of my content wasn't being distributed, or it wasn't being accessed on various social media platforms. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it. But I definitely felt that I didn't get the exposure that I felt that I deserve or I should have gotten as a U.S. Senate candidate. Even though I run as an independent candidate, I think I should have had equal opportunity to compete and share my opinions and thoughts regarding how I want to help out my state and my country as an American citizen. I think that every single American has that right and privilege to be able to share their opinion. We won't always have a nice, beautiful, favorable opinion about the government, about the country, just because we are a democracy. We're always gonna have that basic dissent within our system. But yeah, that doesn't give anyone the right to silence our thoughts and any form of objections regarding how we see the country should be managed and controlled, basically. Anyway, so that was the freedom of speech was violated, and it's very likely that whoever went and blew the whistle on this situation would very be much becoming. I feel that person or that organization will be very vocal in the 2024 presidential election, especially if they decided to go public with this freedom of speech violation, collusion between social media giants and the current government. All right, so this guy, Indian American guy. Well, I mean, he's actually American. We shouldn't be, calling people, two nationalities, even though, they're Americans, especially if he's running for U.S. president. Anyway, Vivek Araswamy, I think I'm pronouncing it right. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but Araswamy had talked about corruption in politics and about our system being broken. So that basically reinforces the previous thought that I just discussed, which was violation of freedom of speech. So Ramaswamy, this new candidate in the Republican primary, has no previous government experience. Maybe that's a good thing. He's not so corrupt, or he's not so overly, um, you know, controlled by special interests. But if the current administration did violate our freedom of speech and made sure that people's thoughts and views, opinions, whatever, were violated using the social media platform, and whoever it is that wanted to say bad things about the administration or try to attack or make them look bad, that's a clear violation of freedom of speech. That's a part of our Second Amendment. I'm sorry, the First Amendment, and we need to definitely make sure that that's well protected. Okay, we don't want to live in a dictatorship, authoritarian, communism, oligarchy, you name it. Those are the systems of government that we fight against. Remember, we're funding Ukraine billions and billions of tax dollars because we're fighting, for those kinds of regimes and systems of government to basically, the world will do away with. And so why would we want to practice that kind of behavior in the U.S. government in our country, in America? It doesn't make any sense at all. So with that said, I want to give a special shout out, a happy New Year and happy holidays to all my supporters. You know who you are, the ones that contributed the little money that they have towards my U.S. Senate bid. These are predominantly the marginalized communities in the U.S., the people that basically do all the hard, laborious work, the nobodies in America who's, most of the time not even considered Americans, even though they are American citizens. Some of my supporters are marginalized. Some of them are minorities. And even, some that are not minorities, they're still not given the voice that they're entitled to receive as an American citizen. So I want to give them a special shout out, and for believing in me. I'm not a seasoned politician. I've worked for politicians in the past, but I'm definitely not cut out to be a politician. But I've never given up on my views regarding a more better, equal, and prosperous country and state. But yeah, with that said, thank you so much for believing in me. I haven't forgotten who you are. I hope that you will continue to support our initiative. Being an underdog, we're probably going to be a forever underdog anyway, because we're just not given, we're not given any exposure at all by the national press or local press to, in that matter. Matter of fact, when I was running for the U.S. Senate, I was supposed to be covered by press from Blacksburg, Virginia, and they withdraw the offer to cover my campaign because my opponent went to Blacksburg and basically campaigned there, and he's a multi-billionaire. So they covered his campaign, but they didn't cover my campaign. So I don't know what went down, but they know who they are. But with that said, thank you folks again for supporting my campaign in the U.S. Senate 2020 general election. So with that said, let's transition on to this one representative out of Missouri, Josh Hawley. He definitely does not see the benefits of letting Ukraine embezzle U.S. taxes. Okay, so he does not believe in sending more money to Ukraine. Why would we let them continue to embezzle U.S. taxes? First of all, U.S. taxes belong to taxpayers, not to politicians. That's not they're not the ones that gets to spend and squander and send money overseas to be embezzled. That's not their job. That's not their overall charge as a representative of the public. Their charge is to listen to us and educate us and let us know what it is that they're trying to do on our behalf and make policy on our behalf so that it makes sense for us to do to keep them in the job. Right now, majority of the people, majority of the senators, congressmen, and any government official that sent money to Ukraine to be embezzled, we still don't know who they are. They're not made public. Okay, their names are not made public. Majority of them are basically hiding now because of the election season coming up, and they don't want people to know that they've signed off on billions and billions of tax dollars to be sent to Ukraine, and more to come. I mean, that's just the reality of things. So, Josh Howley, I give you a shout out, for supporting the public, looking out for the best interests of the American public rather than, giving our hard-earned tax dollars to a country that's not directly connected to the U.S. first, and second, a country that is definitely embezzling our money for their own benefit and not even benefiting their own people. So that's just ridiculous. So with that said, neighboring countries of Ukraine like Slovakia and Hungary even ban Ukraine export of grains because they know how it is that the Ukrainians were operating. Hungary and Slovakia are neighboring countries, and they know more than Americans know regarding their neighbors on how they operate. So they've decided to ban Ukraine export of grains this year. And let's see. So, with that said, why are we still sending billions to Ukraine, and then our government and our decision makers are banging heads on the U.S. debt ceiling? Okay, so if we're having to deal with a debt, a debt situation with our finances, why do we keep sending out money to be embezzled? Doesn't make sense to me. Anybody ever stop them and think, oh, well, if you guys are struggling as a country in the U.S. with your own tax situation and your own pocketbook situation, your own, overall monetary obligations, why are you sending it to a country that are embezzling your funds? It doesn't make sense. It's like, very counterproductive. But still, it's happening. But it happened this year in 2023. And as you all know, also in the primaries, there's this Indian American. Maybe I should stop calling them Indian Americans. They're Americans. I don't care what their ethnicity is, really. They are Americans. Nikki Haley is an American, and so she went on, the stumping grounds and said not to use TikTok, but yet Vivek Ramaswamy called her out at one of the debates, saying that, well, if you're against TikTok, why are you letting your daughter use TikTok? And so that was kind of an interesting exchange, because social media is the norm today. Every politician, everybody's pretty much using social media as a platform. Now, what you share on social media is completely up to you, but it's here to stay, and I don't think it's ever going to go away. We definitely need to figure out a more secure and safe environment for the young people to utilize their social media platform. But I just thought that was a pretty interesting subject in the year 2023, given that Facebook and all these social media platforms came out long before TikTok. But it's it's a newsbreaker, and it's something that I thought I'd talk about on this podcast in the year 2023. So the former Slovak Prime Minister wins a parliamentary election, the parliamentary election in Slovakia, which is pretty interesting, given that he opposes, giving so much priority on Ukraine. Fico was his name, so Prime Minister Fico, F-I-C-O. He himself went out in public and said, Ukraine is just taking too much of our time and energy, because they know exactly how Ukraine's government operate. Anyway, he won the parliamentary election this year, in the year 2023. even though he opposes further support or overly supporting Ukraine. All right, Truth Media platform. So they're not gaining a whole lot of followers. They're not gaining a lot of support from the U.S. public. I don't know what the situation is. Maybe they're just not powerful enough. They're powerful enough or relevant enough for Americans to utilize, or they're just not able to compete. I don't know what the situation is, but I'm hoping that there'll be some sort of balance of power within the social media world where a social media platform cannot take sides, political sides, anywhere or within its own policy. That they can't support or endorse or violate free speech because they fear that their horse is not going to be able to win the race. I think Congress and every lawmaker should put in some sort of law saying that no social media giants can participate in basically architecting a new government system. I mean, I've heard of this deep state stuff. I've tried to read up on it and learn a little bit more about what they're trying to do, but it's not. I don't think they're that powerful enough to sway the U.S. public to abandon new mass media, new technology to be utilized in the U.S. So we got to figure out a way to basically manage these social media giants so that they do not infringe on our rights. They don't violate our freedom of speech and freedom of expression. All right, so Truth Media is actually run by former President Trump. He created it because he was basically silenced by Twitter and other social media platforms, which is I find very strange and intriguing because I'm not a major supporter of Trump, but I don't think that we should silence and ban people that is of a different school of thought than we are. If we want to live in a democracy, we should let people speak their mind, regardless if we believe or follow them or whatever. If we agree with them, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. Everybody should have that right to speak their mind in America. We don't want to live in a dictatorship. We don't want to live in a country that dissent is silence. I mean, imagine that. There's a lot of human rights violations happening in America already. I mean, why would you want to continue that? We are aware that there's a lot of human rights violations that are happening in the country, but yet we're not silencing or we're not exposing them, I should say. And now we're cherry picking on who it is we want to silence all of a sudden. I don't know why that is. So, anyway, so this, like I said, we don't want to silence people, and that brings me back to this Hispanic-American journalist, Mr. Gonzalo Lira, that's being silenced currently. And no national media in the U.S. would cover him. There's hardly any Western media that would cover his case. We still haven't heard from him. His last blog in August, he's running around visibly in distress. He's, wondering what's going to happen to him. He was scared for his life. And then after that post last August on his social media platform, he disappeared, and nobody knows what happened to him. Strange situation, especially if we're giving billions and billions to Ukraine and we're supporting them, and yet an American citizen, Hispanic-American citizen, he may not be of Anglo-Saxon background, but he's still an American. So we have that, we have that responsibility to support him. to help him out if he's in distress, especially, for posting his views on his social media platform. Come on, why would anybody want to silence him for that and put him in jail for that? Okay, if he's telling us garbage, if he's BSing us, well, the marketplace in the world will figure that out eventually. Okay, so people will not listen to him ever if he was, providing disjointed material and information and irrelevant facts. The market will figure that out. He does not need to be, kept in the jail, especially, with the poor health and with, all the crap that he's having to deal with. Why won't the U.S. government help him out and let him vindicate himself? If he's truly, full of crap, then things will be, they will become clear to people, but yet that's not even happening. So let's figure that out now that we're supporting Ukraine still. We're still giving them all the aid that they're requesting from us and more money to be embezzled. And they're holding to our Hispanic-American former journalist, citizen, in a Ukrainian jail. Baffling to me. Doesn't make any sense at all. Anyway, and none of the NATO member countries are calling Ukraine out on this. If they're our allies, why are they not going out there and saying, oh, guess what? We heard there's an American prisoner of war, a former journalist that is in a Ukrainian jail, and you guys want to join NATO and you want to join the European Union. Give us some information on this. No one's, at least they haven't gone public and saying, compelling Ukraine to figure out why it is that they feel that silencing Gonzalo Lira is in the best interest of their country. Unless Gonzalo Lira has something on them that they don't want to be exposed, because that could change the whole dynamics of this war. That's just my thought. It's just a thought, but I'm starting to consider that. I know nothing about Gonzalo Lira. I don't know him personally. I mean, I've seen his video blogs a few times, but I've heard that he's not the best character, whatever. So what? I mean, I'm not looking to save an angel. I'm just saying, if he's got information that could be relevant to the world and that could be influential in the way that we make decision, a sound, good decision, best optimum decision, I want to hear it. All right, folks. With that said, Canada's Sovereignty Act, C-69, about gangerism. Okay, they're fighting gangerism in Canada, of all places. So they created this act, C-69, to help stop these, type of, political unions against each other. So it seems to me like what the Western world is starting to become an Eastern world, and the Eastern world is trying to figure out which way they want to go. But that's happening in Canada, gangerism. So going to the humanitarian aid that we're sending to the Palestinian, 100 million. So far, I heard, in the news, it was on, I believe I read it on CNN, that they are sending $100 million worth of taxes, U.S. taxes, to Palestine. Which, I don't know how they're going to distribute that or how it's going to be managed and controlled. Hopefully it's not going to be embezzled. But I do agree that we need to support the Palestinians, especially, they're under capacity. Their rights have been violated, not just, recently, not just in this year. Their rights have been violated throughout history. I'm not saying that they're blameless, but they're significantly powerless and voiceless and marginalized. So, I definitely want to make sure that they get the support and aid that they need to be able to continue to live. I actually had some friends when I was at the university, Liberty University, when I was a student there, that are from Palestine, and one of my friends' mother was shot in the back running away from the Israeli military when somewhere near Jenin, in Palestine. So you know, I don't know why she was shot at, but I definitely don't want to, overemphasize on, the Palestinians not, um, not complying, and not wanting to expose the terrorists within their communities, because I do believe there are terrorists in their communities, but I also understand that sometimes the Israeli military and the Israeli government are overstepping the boundaries on, peacekeeping, or if they're becoming, an oppressor rather than peacemaker in the region. All right, so Queen Rania of Jordan spoke out about this situation where, she said, why is it if people support Israel, they're basically exercising their, freedom to support, um, a country that's been violated, but yet if you support Palestine, you're supporting terrorism. And I think she had made a really good point, because not people from Palestine are not terrorists. First of all, they're not Hamas. There are Hamas cells within Palestine. There are some, people that are bad apples in Palestine, but some of them are actually looking out for the best interests of the Palestinians. So I haven't, made an overall decision regarding who to support, but I do believe that the Palestinians aren't, being given enough, um, you know, enough understanding by the world community, especially with the narrative that Israel is being violated, Israeli freedom and democracy is being violated by the Palestinians. I mean, I've been to Israel. I didn't really fully, understand why that the Israelis feel like they're being oppressed by the Palestinians. If you go to Bethlehem, if you go to, Jerusalem, you can see the difference in their societies. The haves and the have-nots in their societies. So the narrative's definitely starting to change now, obviously because of social media. There's more information available now that are being freely shared on social media platform worldwide, and so I think that's starting to even out the playing field. But still, let's kind of try to consider some of those innocent people in Palestine that definitely don't have the means or power to fight back military, professional military, trained military, soldiers from Israel. So with that said, folks, please support our Face Economics Patreon, platform, and get our copy of our mug. Our mug is going to be shipped to your house if you were to contribute to our platform. We also have books that are available for our supporters on our Patreon platform. It's just go to our Face Economics Patreon page. It's spelled like that, FACECONOMICS, on Patreon, and you'll be able to get to our page there and support us financially if you feel what we're doing is of benefit and of value to the world community. All right, let's see. So we've got about close to an hour and a half before the new year, so I'll just keep on going. Thank you so much for listening to our podcast. My name is Almina, the author of the social media. I'm sorry, the author of Face Economics, the utilization of the social media platform in economic development. So sticking with Palestine, so the House had censored Rashid Tlaib, who is of Palestinian descent. She's a congresswoman because she basically tried to expose the Israeli government within the Congress, in U.S. Congress, and she mentioned how corrupt and how abusive of power they are. So she was censored by um, the, the House, uh, which is Congress, for sharing her overall experience, and she grew up in a Palestinian house, you know, and she knows the culture. So I don't understand why anybody would want to censor her if they truly want to understand, the situation in Palestine. I would think that these, senators and congressmen in the U.S. on Capitol Hill would want to learn from a subject matter expert. Basically, she grew up in that, you know, environment. I don't know how well she speaks the language, but she's got plenty of, you know, prior experience regarding what's taking place in Israel and Palestine. So I think that we should try to listen to her and endorse her, perspective, and listen to her overall opinion. I'm not saying that she's going to, be that 100% transparent with people, but there is a way for us to connect the dots as Americans and decision makers if she's wanting to sway us to, just benefit her cause and her prerogative versus giving us subject matter expertise that are truthful and relevant. So I think we shouldn't be censoring her. If anything else, we should give her more voice and platform to basically introduce her experience to the American public. All right, so with that said, I'm having a problem with this, primary, especially leading up to the Republican primary, leading up to the, presidential election next year, because, it seems like they've already made a decision on who's going to be their representative, and Donald Trump apparently is their king and savior as the, the lead candidate within the Republican Party. But yet, as you all know, we don't have a king in the U.S. We don't support, royalties. We don't support monarchies. I mean, the Republican Party was created in the 1800s in the U.S. But we're now in the year, almost year 2024, and yet they're still operating as if we have a monarch, the Republican Party. Why would we want to elect someone that doesn't agree with, having Americans of all backgrounds to be, given equal privileges and rights, and supporting, a democratic, solution to our very diverse society. We don't want a king. Trump is definitely not fit to be a king. Okay, I mean, I've experienced his, overall, management style as a former president, and I'm not 100% sure he's that type of person to lead a country as diverse as the U.S. I'm not dogging him out. I'm just letting you know that based on his previous, decisions as a president of a country, I'm not convinced 100% that he's the right person to be in charge in the year 2024 of America. Okay, but with that said, I'm not so sure if the Biden administration is qualified to lead America either. I think we definitely need to wean the country out of the 1800 systems of parties. Both the Republican and Democratic Party were basically structured during the 1800s. So back then, Americans aren't even equal back then. We weren't even allowed to, drink from the same fountain. We're not allowed to congregate. We're not allowed to, mix, in schools, to go attend schools. People back then thought that their race is superior over other races. because they came from Europe, Western Europe mostly, and that they're more educated and more sophisticated and more, higherly, what you call that word, overly all-knowing of what is right and what's not right. And if that were to be the case, then we wouldn't have this problem with racism in this world. But obviously, that was not the case, and lo and behold, we're still dealing with racism in the U.S., and it's actually gotten worse. So let's, try to figure things out that will benefit us in the new world market in the year 2024, and not go back to the past that where everybody weren't equal. We're not given privileges as human beings as equal rights for everyone. Okay, I know there's a lot of people that would find this controversial, but I think in the year 2024, okay, if we don't figure that out soon, we're going to have even more worse problems down the road. And we need to find a way to connect with the right, agenda moving forward as a country. Okay, so with that said, I'm still undecided whether to support Trump or Biden, and I'm probably gonna do a more compelling and concrete research on this, so that I can share that on our next blog on who to support and why I believe we should support and endorse those candidates. All right, so Donald Trump. So FBI took possession of New York Mayor Eric Adams, iPod and whatever it is that he was using to basically to govern as a mayor of New York. I don't know much about the guy, but I definitely don't feel he's qualified to do what he's doing based on some of the decisions that he's basically tried to endorse within the New York City public. I think he's definitely out of his league, and he's not, effective enough to manage a city the size of New York City. So, Eric Adams, I think it's time for you to, concede and let other, out-of-the-box thinkers take the role for New York City, because New York City is definitely one of the largest cities in the country, and it's one of the wealthiest and one of the most diverse society in America. Tons of migrants that are living in New York, and tons of people from different, from various cultures and backgrounds living in New York. And having Eric Adams try to influence a small segment of the population, trying to create some sort of, iron fist situation in New York, is the most unproductive solution that he can probably try to enforce in a city the size of New York. I'm not saying give everybody, the freedom to do whatever they feel like doing, especially trying to, bring what they've learned from abroad into this American society that is counterproductive in our growth and our overall unity and cohesion process. But he needs to be able to influence everyone, regardless of background and race, and education. Until he figures that out, I don't think he should be, enforcing any iron fist type of enforcement to rule New York City. That's just my thoughts on that. And I guess, even the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigations, kind of got a hold of that situation and is trying to kind of develop some sort of solution for that community without overly, disrupting the lives of the citizens of New York City. So wow, it's almost an hour. We're still gonna keep going because this is our last podcast. Thank you for sticking with me. I appreciate your time. Please let me know what your thoughts are. If there's anything that you would like me to cover in our next podcast, please, share that with us on our YouTube channel. There's a description page there and comment page, a section, I'm sorry, that you can tell us what it is that you want us to talk about or would consider to, talk about further or expand on regarding this podcast. So with that said, make sure to support us on our Faceconomics Patreon page and get a mug from us or a book if you're so inclined to do so. We would appreciate any help and support that you would want to bestow upon us to continue what we're doing and helping others develop capacity and alleviate themselves from poverty via capacity building, institutional development, and economic development worldwide using the social media platform Faceconomics. So with that said, going back to Ukraine, Zelensky went to the U.S. this year again to ask for more aid, and I really don't think that he deserves more aid as far as what he's been doing and his overall strategy and decision-making process. I don't feel that he's created relevancy and he's created a compelling case for Americans to continue to support him. I don't mind providing aid to the Ukrainian people, to the population, but as far as Zelensky is concerned, I don't believe he should stay in power. I think it's time for him to, own up to all the crap that he created and put his people through. So that's just my thoughts on that. But yeah, so he came back recently to the U.S. and tried to influence our decision makers to provide more assistance in aid to his country so that his government can embezzle it, which I don't think is in our best interest as Americans. And I think even, Vivek Ramaswamy had, brought up the Ukrainian issue, and I agree with him. Ukraine is not the beacon or had never been a leader in this region as far as transparency and accountability. So even though Ramaswamy doesn't have a lot of, or even any government service background, I do agree with his sentiments regarding Ukraine, and I think every politician in the U.S. should reconsider their support for Ukraine, especially Kamala Harris and Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, everybody else that basically gave Zelensky a platform when he was in the U.S. should reconsider and revisit their decision-making process regarding Ukraine and their support. Revisit their support specifically to Mr. Zelensky. With that said, I think we're pretty much, getting close to the end of my list. This Israeli-Palestinian, conflict. It's been an ongoing conflict, folks. Do not think that it just took place this year. It's been an ongoing issue from the very beginning of time. Before there was even an Israel as a country and Palestine as a state, they've been fighting, banging heads. They're nomadic people. They didn't really just start fighting because of territorial issue. They've been fighting because of, their ethnic issues and various religious issues. So don't be, bamboozled to think that those two countries are fighting over just territorial issues. They've been fighting over just about every issues. So if you're gonna take sides of the innocent people that are being oppressed and violated, and whose overall life has been disrupted by political conflicts. Okay, these are ethnic conflicts and political conflicts, and gang conflicts between parties. So it's always the marginalized, the voiceless, the powerless that are affected by the decision-making process of the imbeciles, the people that are idiots in the government, are not thinking about those that are marginalized, oppressed, voiceless, powerless. They could care less about them. That's happening around the world, even in America. The marginalized in America, the voiceless, powerless, the ethnic minority, everyone that has no power in America, virtually, if you're not white or elite black in America, or elite white, I should say, you're basically, you're out of luck. So the elite white and elite black are the decision makers in America. They're the ones that have all the power and authority. And so if you're marginalized, if you're in neither race, you're basically out of luck, because they're not going to listen to you. I know this for a fact because I've felt it, I've experienced it, and guess what? I'm still out here trying to resolve some of the issues that I've had with certain departments and agencies in the U.S. government. So I'm speaking from my own experience. I actually got a letter from the White House dated February 10th, 2022, and they made a promise that have yet to manifest itself. They haven't, given me any of the relief aid and justice and solution and any support based on that letter. So I know how it is, so nothing new under the sun when it comes to the government. But I just thought I'd share that with you guys because that's been an ongoing issue, not just in my situation, but all over the U.S. and all over the world. Basically, if you're powerless, marginalized, voiceless, you name it, underrepresented or no representation whatsoever, then that's your fate in these powerful societies in countries like America. Okay, so Republican primary, Indian Americans, there's two of them, are constantly being talked about. We have two Indian Americans in the Republican primaries, blah, 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 but yet no one's talking about Christie or DeSantis that are European descent. And yet, it's such a big deal in America that we have Indian Americans. They're not really Indian Americans, they're American citizens. Everybody in America. There's no such thing as hyphen American. If you're a citizen of the U.S., if you are a citizen of a country, you are called that country's citizen. If you know nothing about any other countries, then what's the point of calling you, an ethnic, nationality, hyphen another nationality to, to promote what agenda? There's no reason for that. Okay, what are they trying to, suggest that you would be operating as an Indian American, individual that is going to tap into both country's culture and norms and traditions and languages and political views. Sometimes it baffles me to listen to this kind of jargon. The only people that would be hyphen and hyphen are the ones that do not feel that they actually is a part of that society, is not a part of that community, it's not a part of that country, it's not a part of that society. That's why they would want to call themselves two and two. What typically happens is that when you're not in your country and you're not a citizen of any other country, then you are a citizen of the country that you register as a citizen. Okay, regardless of what ethnicity you're from. It's just all these stupidities happening in the U.S. media with this, bad relabeling of people, which is very counterproductive. Let's talk about their views. Let's talk about their overall capacity, their agenda, their solutions to issues. Let's talk about their actual platform. I don't care what their race is. I don't know why that is even all that relevant, to be honest. In the year 2023, if you're not able to move past race, then you're definitely not able to build your capacity long term. I mean, you need to get over those kind of things. They're not relevant anymore. All right, so let's close off with Hungary, and they are posting EU talks for Ukraine to join the European Union, but they're still willing to support them via aid. So they're willing to provide humanitarian aid to Hungary, and to Ukraine, even though most Hungarians don't believe that they should join the European Union. So that tells you quite a bit about Ukraine. Okay, folks, I hope that you're able to differentiate some of the things that I brought up on this podcast for you to make a decision on whether to support certain people and certain governments or certain countries, and who not to support. That's our prerogative, that's our priority, and that's something that we want you guys to be aware of. We're here to basically learn, as well as endorse a very different way to assess information, especially in foreign policy, economics, trade, commerce, government systems, and the pre-existing conditions, because we no longer live in the year 1990. We're no longer in the 1900s. We're now in the century, in the 2800s, that is fast moving in terms of technology, in terms of social media being used and utilized worldwide. Never before in human history has social media been around. It was never available. So we have new problems in the new world marketplace in the year 2024. That's just the reality of the world. The world keeps on moving forward. It's no longer interested in going back to the year 1800s, where the Republican and the Democratic Party was created, where they don't believe that everybody should have equal rights, when people are not people. They're contrabands, they're commodities. They're, back then, if someone that isn't of Anglo-Saxon background, they're basically isolated. They're not given the same privileges as everybody else is given in the U.S. So that's just the reality of that world back then in the 1800s. In this reality, in the year 2024, things has to change in order for us to remain relevant. That said, folks, thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a wonderful, bountiful new year. Do the things that you've always wanted to do. Create, opportunities. Create, things that will be of relevance. Things that would basically make your life worthwhile, worth remembering, worth writing about, worth talking about. Those are the things that you need to focus in on. Don't wallow into petty, stupid things. Don't be stuck on stupid. I mean, if you want to be stuck on stupid, that's totally up to you. But guess what? You're not going to be happy with your life. You're not going to be able to influence people. You're not going to be able to find that medium where you feel satisfied with your contribution to the world, to society, to your family, to your neighbors, to your friends. So don't be stuck on stupid. That's my year-end suggestion, is do not be stuck on stupid in the year 2024. All right, folks, with that said, thank you for joining me in this New Year's Eve podcast. 2023 year in review. Support us on Patreon, Face Economics Patreon, and get a mug from us or a book and whatever merchandise that you qualify for as contributor to our costs, which is, we're not asking for too much. We're just trying to help others to basically build their community, build their society, build their markets, build their country. And I'm not just even talking about, poorer countries. I'm talking about the U.S. as well. You have friends that are, or neighbors and communities in the U.S. that could, use some help there too. So don't just think that this is all about just, going abroad and helping other people abroad. We're also trying to connect with American citizens that are in need. Given, yes, there are more people abroad that, don't have the privileges and resources that most Americans have. But, we're not trying to cherry pick on who to help. Just be kind, support others, be efficient in whatever passion you're in. Continue to build your capacity and help each other out. And make this new year count. 2024 is going to be only 12 months long. Use that time to influence others, to make things better for others, to build your overall personal capacity, your character, your personal growth, right? Okay, folks. Thank you again for listening. Okay, that's my cue. That's the fireworks outside. It's my cue to end this podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Al Mina, the concept author of Face Economics, the organization of the social media platform in economic development worldwide. Take care. Bye-bye.